right, so we're here to talk about a group of Starfall Sabers that are going to a single client. These were all designed to be very unique. They all have really high-end Greeblie chassis. So let's hop down to the table. Let's talk about what went on with the design, go over some of the programming, show off some of the internals, cover each one individually so we can show off to the client that we've met all of his expectations. We'll hop back out. I'll go over a few operating procedures when it comes to the blade, and then we'll wrap it up. Thanks for checking it out. All right, so let's talk about this grouping of mystery sabers from Starfall for my client. I'll be bringing in the other ones to show off each chassis as we go along, but I just figured I'd start with one, and this is the one I picked up. So the operation's going to be same across the rest of them. The only difference is the accent pixels and such like that will be different. So I've already unscrewed the set screw for the grip, but across all of these, you'll have a set screw for your emitter, one for the Neopixel or switch holder, depending on which one it is, and one for the grip. And almost all of them are all aligned. A couple of them have some other screws, but you'll notice because the emitter and the grip are in alignment. But that being said, only the emitter and grip use the provided Allen key. This is my Allen key. I'm just keeping all of the Allen keys for the customer with the extra stuff that Nick provides with the Hilts. So this is the same size, but I've already unscrewed the grip, and then we can pull the grip off to reveal the resin printed chassis. This is just something highly detailed I did. This customer requested, unique designs for each of these hilts. So almost all of them will have a row of 2020 accents and an Edison filament or two, depending on which design I've done here. But all of them are the same size. They all sport a Proffie V3 with a kill switch, a spot for a removable 18650 battery, which I've left in here with a custom battery wrap, a 28 millimeter bass speaker from KR Sabers. They all have a crystal chamber with a single pixel accent driving it. The switches vary from hilt to hilt. This one uses a Cosmic Intergalactic Neopixel switch here, and then a provided red button from a Graflex. So I had to print a holder with a tactile underneath it. And if we go ahead and take the blade plug out, they all sport a Shadowfoil Emitter PCB. Sorry, getting my mirror. And so to turn them on, we'll hit the kill switch. Now, before I do that, let me just have a caveat here. I mentioned this on one of the other installs for this customer that weren't the Starfalls, but he requested like over 50 sound fonts on the SD card. For that reason, you'll notice a little bit of a lag between either a button press or when you turn the Saber on as it reads throughout all of the subfolders on the card. I highly recommend to the customer, once you get these in hand, to back up each SD card onto a computer. And then, so just basically duplicate exactly what's on here so that you have a backup in case the card gets corrupted, which can happen over time as you either make changes or do things on the fly. Just with a loaded card, that can happen. So just put it in the computer, download all the file folders, put it somewhere where you'll keep it safe, then put the SD card back in and you can operate the Saber. And then that way you also have a copy of the config, which is provided on the SD card as well, should you decide to do any program in the features. Okay, that being said, I'm gonna hit the kill switch. You'll probably notice a little bit of a lag.
Credits will do fine.
And then we start off. So this particular Saber is going to one of the client's siblings. So this font and this color are to represent that sibling's either preferences or whatever. So this is the Qui-Gon font on this particular one, even though Qui-Gon had a different blade color. This is for the sibling. So this is a blood red or blood orange kind of color, matching in the crystal. And then you'll notice the accent PCBs are all doing something different. What's really cool about this particular one is we got these two miniature Edison filaments right here, which it's hard to tell on camera, but they will respond to blaster blocks and flashes and stuff like that. Most of the the LEDs will as well. Just depends on what I've programmed. They're all different. But we have twist on and twist off. We have thrust on and swing on, and those will get you into battle mode. But the cosmic intergalactic switch is your power, and the red button is your auxiliary. Auxiliary in the off state will switch between fonts. Again.
I see you have constructed a new lightsaber.
And so now we go through the rest of the fonts relatively alphabetically. I've put all of the Starfall fonts at the very end. So if we want to go backwards, we can point the hilt down and hit auxiliary.
I'm Qui-Gon Jinn.
That'll be the first font. The last preset is a battery level indicator.
Battery level.
So all of the accents will go from green to red depending on how charged it is. You can also do a button combination of holding aux and tapping power in the off state to get a battery percentage readout. And I've programmed each saber with Brian Connor's character fonts for the edit mode. So that's the only time you'll ever really hear them. But so let's do that real quick.
Battery level 95%.
So since Qui-Gon was this kind of siblings font that the customer wanted, I put the Qui-Gon as the edit mode. You can also do the invert for volume level. So hold power, tap aux.
Enter volume menu. Maximum volume.
Rotate one way to go up, rotate the other to go down. You'll hear a click for a percentage.
Minimum volume.
And I don't know if you heard that, but he said minimum volume. And then as you get towards the end,
Maximum volume.
and then you just
Exiting volume menu.
power to exit. So again, you'll only hear that in edit mode. I'll have a printout that goes over edit mode in its entirety. But anyway, so that's just, we're on the battery level preset. So again, to go backwards. So now we're at the end of the Starfall fonts. And so I'm going backwards, obviously, but we've got Corn Horn. There's 8 fonts for Starfall, and that's just, most of the programming is typical for those particular items. The accents are all something just I picked, so they're kind of arbitrary, but I tried to be somewhat mindful of the style. So on the Greeblie accents here, we've got a row of 2020 strips subdivided into 3 different blades, so you can do something different for each of these grill styles. And then same goes for the left side on this particular one. This Greeblie accent is subbladed, and then this kind of corrugated baffled tubing has its own color. The Edison filaments are always blue, but they will do either some sort of blinking. Again, it's going to be subtle on camera. It's either some sort of blinking, some sort of pulsing, some sort of whatever in the on and off states. And then that'll vary in the on state. But again, if we ignite the saber, I'm going to do it muted real quick. So I double tap to mute it. So now we can see the accents going. But if we were to clash the saber, you can sort of see it dipping down. And then if we were to lock the saber up, you can hold a button and then tap the saber. So now you can really see it moving. And so same with the other ones until I let go of that button. Okay. And then twist on and off to turn the saber on, or power and then aux. So to go backwards again, point the hilt down. Now we got a little different. Again, all the accents change. This cosmic intergalactic. I did do a bit of a dim blade on this because this is super bright. I didn't want you to blind yourself or somebody, since this is almost like a magnifying lens when you look directly into it. So that's working at about like, I think 35% brightness. You'll see that in the config if you decide to edit anything, but just figured I'd do that because that can be, I wanted all the accents to kind of have the same level of intensity depending on what you're looking at. So yeah, just something real cool. Again, we can turn that off. If we need to, we can charge the battery. What I tend to do is just kind of tap against my palm, but you can obviously get your finger or a tool under there and then it just comes right out. But we do have the, see if we can show this on camera, the Starfall logo in the battery tray. And then we've got a plus sign for the positive. Spring side's always your negative. So when we put battery in, flat part of the battery goes against the spring, nipple goes to the nipple. You do want to make sure, depending on which saber this is, that sometimes the spring will stick out when it's fully compressed, which will prevent you from putting the grip on. So just make sure that it's centered when you put the battery in. If you put it in at a weird angle, it can kind of kick up. And then as you go to put the hilt or the grip on, you'll feel it stop you from being able to show off some of these accents. So Nick etched the siblings' initials on each of the hilts on the inside of the grip. And then I just provided a bunch of different designs for Greeblies and then painted them sort of in the vein of what Tim at Tierfon does. But I decided to go a little bit different with the accents on these. There is a bit of a Mylar strip for diffusion underneath each of these accent strips. So when we're ready, we can put the grip back on. And again, we just want to align all of the set screws. You'll notice a little bit of a marring right there where the set screw has been cinched against the grip. You can obviously put it on any which way, but that's the way it makes the most sense so that we're not over the crystal chamber. And then, yeah.
Battery level.
If you wanted to, you could check this out real quick. So here's my little button. And then I just printed a little actuator that presses that button. So you'll never need to take this off, but that's just so you can see how that was done. And then, yeah, then we got our CIG switch for power.
I'm Qui-Gon Jinn.
So now we're at the beginning of the presets. See the Shadowfoil Neopixel. Again, this is just going to do what the blade does. There's no special programming, and that's because there's no shine through on the blade plug. So I didn't see a need to do anything special on all of these hilts.
I'll never turn to the dark side.
Yep. All right, so let's show off the other hilts while we're down here just to see the different accents. Do be careful when you go to put this in. This is just sitting inside here, this nipple. And so if you are careless and you bend or torque on it, you could snap. So just make sure you're being very careful as you put the grip on to not twist or bend as you're doing that so that there's no accidental breakage of the resin chassis. 174. We've got a cool leather grip. Feels awesome. We've got two Colimium Custom Sabers brass. Or is it brass or is that copper? I don't remember. That's copper, I think. Copper switches. So again, you can see the emitter set screw, the Neopixel set screw. Again, don't mess with this because you'll mess up the holder. it's a different size, so you shouldn't, but just know that that's your emitter and this is for your grip. You want to make sure that's fully backed off so you're not scratching the grip as you pull it off. But as you do, you can see there's, again, the etched siblings name. And now this is a totally different chassis, but again, with the same features. We've got a long Edison filament going underneath this baffled Greeblie. And you can see I did some heat stain pigments on there with all of the Greeblies. And then on this side, we have a similar set of 3 2020 strips subdivided into, separate things. We've got our battery wrap. We've got our crystal chamber, kill switch, 28 millimeter bass speaker. And then if we take the blade plug out of this one, our Shadowfoil Neopixel. Come on, I guess I gotta really undo it. I think I got some residue in there. So this is just a fake. This doesn't do anything. The other one does. So your power is your left and your aux is your right. If it's in your hand and facing you, left power, right aux. Shadowfoil Neopixel PCB. And then we've got a single pixel underneath the crystal to light it up so we can hit our kill switch. This will start off on a different font.
I feel the conflict within you. Let go of your hate.
But again, it's for this particular sibling. So the blade style is per the request. It may not necessarily match the character's color. I'm forgetting who this one is. But, yep, just so we can see that. So again, those are 3 different blade styles. You can program them to do different things if you want to. And then this is just a single Edison filament going through that separate set of baffling. And again, it'll do something different in the on and off states, but it will mostly react. Again, I'm not sure how well that shows up on camera, but it'll flash depending on what's going on with the saber. And then so will the other accents. Not all of the accents will always do something, just sometimes they will. It just depends on what I decided to do in the programming. So for instance, only the center reacts to blaster blocks and clashes, but just decided to do something different for each hilt, paint-wise and accent-wise, but have similar features across the whole lot of these. So again, every hilt will have a set of strips. How many there are differs, and then it will have at least one, if not multiple Edison filaments doing something, and then obviously the crystal chamber will always be the same. And the crystal chamber, for the most part, will match the blade per the customer's request. I think a couple fonts I did something a little different, and I don't think I was too adventurous. I just remember a couple of them I did something different in the off state than the on state. So yeah. And again, I did
I'll never turn to the dark side.
I did a character, so if we go to test the battery percentage, we'll hold aux tap power.
Battery level 92%.
So this one is Luke.
I am Luke Skywalker.
Battery level.
Okay, so and then at the end here, we're seeing the Starfall fonts. See that in the crystal. Oops, don't touch the Proffie. All right, so that wraps this one up. Show off the next one. All right, so here is Mystery Saber 175. Again, same thing. We got an emitter set screw. I got a Neopixel set screw, which is a different side, but don't mess with it if you do have the tool for it. And then our grip set screw. A Allen key will be provided. This is just my Allen key, so I can leave all that stuff together. But back off the set screw, pull the grip off to reveal the chassis, and then the etch that Nick did for the siblings' initials. This particular chassis has a little bit something different. We've got subdivided Neopixel strip here, so these two do different things. We also have a smaller Edison filament under baffling, but similar to the one we just looked at. We can see our spring does kind of poke out here. But this one has a Shadowfoil accent PCB. I think that's 7 pixels. So the center pixel does one thing, and then the outer does something else. We also have a Smuggler's Outpost auxiliary switch. The customer requested that I not light it, but I decided to wire it up in case the sibling that this is going to decides to change their mind. So I've programmed all of the fonts that the customer requested to not be on, but on the Starfall fonts, I did something different for each font so that this does light up, just so that you could see the capabilities. You can always turn it off in the programming with an option, but we'll pull our blade plug out. Shadowfoil Neopixel PCB. All of the Starfall hilts will take a 7/8 blade. But yeah, so let me pop the battery out and put it back in. I mentioned on the last one that the spring can sometimes point out depending on how you stick this in, which will prevent the grip from going on, but we can sort of see the Starfall logo there. And then we've got positive terminal, clearly identified, spring sides to negative, so flat side of the battery to the spring, and then try to make sure you're pushing the spring down so that it stays inside of the tray and doesn't prevent the grip from going on. Turn our kill switch on. Again, there will be a little bit of a lag.
He told me enough. He told me you killed him.
Because there's 50 some odd fonts on here. And then now we can see all of the various Greeblies that I programmed. And this one has 2 different accent pixels doing something different. We got our Shadowfoil accent doing something pretty cool there. And then we've got an Edison filament, and you can sort of see it blinking. It's a little subtle on camera. And then we've got our crystal chamber with a single Neopixel under that. Again, this is a font, but with a blade style that may not necessarily match the font. And again, you can see that that doesn't light up. Left side is power, right side is aux. All right. But if we go backwards, we'll point the hilt down.
Battery level.
Again, the last preset is always the battery, so the accent pixels will light up from green to red, depending on how much it's charged. If you want to know a percentage, hold aux, tap power.
Battery level 100%.
So we've got a full battery. We got our, I don't know if you heard that, but that was old Qui-Gon. I'm sorry, not old Qui-Gon, old Obi-Wan.
Battery level 100%.
If we wanted to change the volume, we could do the inverse, hold power, tap aux.
Enter volume menu.
And here Obi-Wan asks us,
Maximum volume.
rotate one way, you're going to go up. Rotate the next. There we go. Here a click.
Minimum volume.
I don't know if you heard that. He said minimum volume, but goes in
Maximum volume. Exit volume menu.
increments of 10, I believe. So I've programmed all of these to be 2200, 2250, I think, maybe, volume. So these speakers can go up to like 3000, probably more, but I didn't want to overpower them. Some of the hilts, because of they're constructed a little bit differently, will sound different, but they all sound great. Some of them are just the speaker position is like just different on each, so that will change the perceived volume and the perceived tone. But they all sound really great. Some of them sound really freaking great. Anyway, so I was going to go backwards to show you the switch light up. So do that real quick. So you can sort of see it's very subtle, but it's red as well, and it's blinking in the off state. And then it's heartbeat when it's on. And again, customer, you requested that just be left alone, but I felt no need to not wire it up should you change your mind or your siblings change their mind in the future. So if you wanted to program that, you can see how to do that in the config. You would just turn a feature on and off. You can email me if you have questions about how to do that. But here we go. We've got just cool little different accents doing different things in the on and off state. And then when we're ready for long-term storage, hit the kill switch, line up all of the set screws, cinch it down, put the blade plug back in. On most of these blade plugs, they can go further than what was kind of intended. So I just kind of hold my finger towards the tip and then cinch it down. You can do whatever you want. I think only the 177 here is perfectly set because I had to print something that was particular. This is 175. That was 176. Set screw, emitter set screw, PCB set screw. Again, don't mess with the middle one, just these two. Undo it fully so we don't scratch the hilt. You'll see a little mark for where it's intended to go, the etch for your siblings, and then this one, very similar to the first one in that we've got 2 Edison filaments down here. However, on this one, we've got identical baffled strips, and these aren't subdivided. This is just one blade. So that kind of simplified things. And then we have, again, like 177, we've got a cosmic intergalactic Neopixel switch, which was dimmed to kind of not be overpowering. We got a aluminum Phil Guinness Columbium Custom Sabers switch on the box for aux, and then a 18650 battery. Hit the kill switch.
My clone troops turned on me. I need help.
So this one has Obi-Wan for its custom font, and then a purple blade for this particular sibling. Take the blade plug out. You just heard me thrust on right there. But we got a little bit of a different accent in the off-on state for this one. Blinks. And then in the off, it just pulses blue. And you can see the Edison filaments sort of react to that as well. So.
I'll never turn to the dark side.
Hit aux to advance. We got our Neopixel. And again, it's just going to match the blade color. The blade, for the most part, will match the crystal. The accents will all be something different. And again, the Edison filaments are only one color, but they'll animate a little differently depending on which font you're on. So for instance, you can see that's a heartbeat.
I suggest you try it again, Luke.
Anakin.
I am Kaden Jarrett.
Master Windu!
So again, did some cool baffling there with some heat stain pigments. This one's a little bit more subtle than some of the others. And then a bunch of Greeblie work with different paint job, just something unique so that each saber is unique in and of itself. So again, turn the kill switch when we're ready to store for long term, align the grip carefully, and then line up all the set screws, cinch down the grip, and then we can put our blade plug back in. And that will cover it. So this is going to be a longer video since we're going over quite a few things here. Again, they all take a 7/8 diameter blade. They've been programmed for a 36-ish length. I will cover that, most of the functions. Anything that's not covered in either this close-up or the blade will be in a printout. So that will cover all of the edit mode functions. I would recommend, because there's so much work done with the accent pixels, the on-the-fly color change overwrites all of them. So I would recommend edit mode for if you want to change a particular preset that I've programmed, if you want to change the blade color. It's really easy to do. I'll show that off probably with the blade, but yeah. So we'll wrap it up. All right, so we covered quite a bit down there. So yeah, this is gonna be a long one. But we had to cover all of the intricate features so we could tell the customer we did exactly what they asked for, which you noticed up top when I announced the Qui-Gon font, but we had a blood red or an orangish blade color. This is going to one of this customer's siblings, and they requested that specifically. I will say what I did for each sibling's particular font is the same on every saber. So even though the top font for each saber is for each individual sibling, the rest are basically in alphabetical order, with the Starfall default font packages being the very last 8 fonts. So those are out of alphabetical sequence. However, when you come upon that particular font that the customer requested for a sibling, i.e., let's say OB3, which I think this is, that's what this one is, OB3 on the other sibling's font, on the other sibling's hilt, will be this blade set of blade styles, but will be in alphabetical order. I hope that makes sense. Each of these hilts is loaded with sound fonts directly from the customer, which is why we're showing it off up top instead of the Starfall fonts. There's quite a bit of programming, and so and I think I mentioned this down below, but as we go through each of the fonts, there may be a little bit of lag because it's having to read the card, and it's also having to read subfolders on the card, because I left sort of the way those fonts came from the manufacturers. For instance, there's a few fonts that just have variations, i.e. The father font for Darth Vader on one of these hilts has like 3 or 4 different versions from the films, so that the sounds are a little bit more accurate, but I only programmed one, which is in a subfolder, and as we switch between presets, it's reading that. So long-winded way to say that you may hear or see a delay in a button press.
I'll never turn to the dark side. By
the time it gets to the next font. That's just going to be typical of how this works, because we've loaded up that SD card with all kinds of stuff. So up top, we've got, if the hilt is facing you, the left is always going to be power, the right is always going to be aux. And then to advance, I think I mentioned this down below, but to advance fonts, we just hit aux in the off state. You can do a press and hold where you rotate. I'll let you read how to do that. That may be something you like, because you'll be able to hear it faster. I think it will still read and respond kind of at the same slow pace. But that being said, when we're ready, we can choose a bunch of different ways to ignite the saber. We have twist on, we have thrust on, we have swing on, and then we can just hit power. When you hit power, you're going to be in regular mode. So clashes against the saber are just going to be clashes. If we're in the other ignition pattern, if we're in the other ignition styles, we hop into battle mode, which means a clash. If we don't move the saber quick enough, we'll engage a lockup. So let's demonstrate that real quick. We'll swing on. All right. So now if we clash the saber and I don't move the hilt, I'm in a lockup until I pull out of that position. And a lockup can also be melts, which are sideways, drags, which are hilt pointing down, and then regular mode when we're not that way. So if we swing to the side, we'll get a melt. I should mention, I'm using a 7/8 blade that is 32 inches in length, because that's my KR pixel stick length, but these are programmed for 36. So you'll notice that a little bit looks cropped, but that's because you've got a few extra pixels programmed to light up. That being said, I just wanted to make sure that you noticed that, so that if tip effects look a little odd, there we go. If if tip effects look a little odd like that drag, it's because there's a few extra pixels. That being said, to engage the lockups when you're in regular mode, you have to hold either aux or power as you clash. So I'm going to hold aux, tap the saber, and as long as I'm still pressing the button, I'll be in lockup, no matter if it's a melt, a drag, or a regular lockup. Now, if we're in regular mode and we just do a side glance, then you'll actually get a stab, and that's a different color. And it's probably not going to show up on screen because I'm sucking. Yeah, it's a little too quick to show on screen, but you'll get a little stab. Okay, so that's battle mode. The other thing to note is multi-blast mode, and I don't know if that's auto. I can't remember if I've programmed that to auto start or if you happen when you press the button while you're swinging. But
Yeah, they go.
okay. So if we're going to start in regular mode to get into multi-blast mode, you hold you tap aux while you're swinging. Okay, and so now. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now every time we do a swift glance, we're gonna get a blaster block. And then to get out of it, we just hit a blaster. See, now we're not doing that. But I can't remember if it automatically does that in battle mode, so let's just test that out real quick. No, all right. One other thing I mentioned down below is with the fact that I've programmed these to be judicious about the blade styles across all of the different accent pixels. The on-the-fly color change, which is holding aux and tapping power when the blade is on, you're going to overwrite all of the colors. So what I suggest is getting into edit mode, which is hold both buttons in the off state.
Edit mode.
And then you hear our Qui-Gon announcing edit mode. So now as we rotate, we're going to get through all the different menus, and we just want to pick the color menu.
Edit style. Edit color.
Edit color, hit power to accept.
Select blade.
So when we're in the select blade mode, the blade will blink, and it will always go in order that I programmed it. And for that reason, I programmed the main blade first and the crystal chamber second, in case you want those to be the first two you change. So
1.
now you can see it blinking. So this is the blade I want to change.
Color menu. Color options.
So we go to color options.
Select effect. Base color.
We want to do base color.
Select option. Color list. Adjust color hue.
So color list will just jump between the two colors. If we do color hue, it'll be a gradient as we rotate.
Color list.
So I'm just going to do color list. Okay, so now, and you can see, it's just going to go between the two. To accept that color, you'll hit power. I'm not going to do that right now because we're going to effectively change all of them. Effectively change the preset as I've designed it, which I don't want to do. But that's how I would suggest it. So I'm going to revert.
Revert. Color
which
options.
Is auxiliary.
Cancel. Select effect. Cancel. Color menu. Cancel. Select blade. Cancel. Main menu.
So now
Exit.
I've canceled out of each of those menus, and now I'm just in regular operation as if I just turned the saber on. Edit mode can get deep, which is why I generally don't cover it, but because you, the customer, requested specifically a behavior style that I didn't think would actually behoove this setup as I've programmed it, I wanted to let you know that that's how I would do it. You can still do color change on the fly. Again, hold aux, tap power. So now you hear that sound. Again, you'll notice that, but if I take the grip off real quick, I think I showed this before, but now all of the accent colors are changing as well. It's only going to change the base color, just like I was just changing the base color in edit mode, which means as soon as I turn it off, all of the off colors will go back to how I programmed it. So that may be weird, but you can change off color in the edit mode. Again, I'm going to get out of here.
Revert.
So he just says revert, and now all of the various blade colors that I've done, which you can see there's like 4 different ones here, stayed the same. So that's why I'm just showing that off real quick, because that's something different than what we talked about, and it's different than what I normally do. But I just thought I'd let you know. So that's color change in both edit mode and on the fly. Again, both will work. They do different things and for different reasons, and you can learn about more on the printout if you want to explore edit mode in further detail. All right, so that's going to cover most of that operation. Now let's talk about what happens when we press power when the blade is on. There's going to be a number of things. We can start the track if the hilt is pointed up, and it will play a designated track when the blade is on. In the off state, if we're pointed in any other direction, we'll start a track, but we're getting into track player mode. So on some of these fonts, I've programmed, some of these fonts came with multiple tracks, and so what I've done is left them in the main folder. If they didn't come with them, or if I chose something else, I put those in the common folder. And the common folder has a real long list of tracks, just some extra features I figured I'd give to you. So that being said, in the off state, we hold power for a second and let go. There you go. So you heard that pong sound, which tells us that we were in track player mode. And I think I accidentally pressed it right away. So again, we hold it for a second to turn it off. I think I pressed it again right away, which means I wasn't going to be able to select through it. But you'll hear that pong sound. And then as you rotate the saber, you'll be able to go between the different tracks. Some of the folders come with maybe 4, maybe 6 tracks. The common folder again has a lot, so you'll hear it kind of lag between all as it's reading it. It just depends on which preset we're on. So we're on this Anakin font, I believe, which comes with like 3 or 4 tracks. So again, it will only play the designated track in the upright mode. Okay, let's do that real quick. It's hard to tell on this SIG switch. Okay. So that is track 1 or whatever track I selected. Again, hold for a second to turn on or off. But if we're rotated in another direction, we'll be in track player mode. So again, let me do that again. There we go. A little bit of lag because it's going through the subfolders. I think Anakin has 2 or 3 different fonts, or 2 options, so it's reading the subfolders. Now, if I rotate, it's going to go between the tracks in that folder. And then if I want to stay on that track, I can either hit the power again or hit the, this one's really quiet, or hit the aux. The buttons do something different. It'll either keep going on after that, depending on which button you do, or it'll just repeat. And I forget which is which. But once you hit a button, you tell it to keep playing, and then you can rotate the saber like I just did. But if we're in the on state, we can only start and stop the designated track in the upright position. So hold it for a second. Again, it'll take a second. There we go. And then to turn it off, you have to be in the upright as well. Okay. So it's a little bit hard to tactily feel that on this SIG switch. You can sort of feel the give, but sometimes you can't tell if you've depressed it or not. Okay. Other things that can happen with power holding for a second while the blade is on is a force effect or a quote. Now it'll just default to a force effect, and you can switch between quote player mode by Hilt pointing down, so it's the opposite of the track. But any other position, it's just going to play a force effect if there's one in the folder. Some fonts don't have them. Most of the fonts do. So if I hold it for a second, you get a sound effect, and for the most part, I've programmed the blade to do something to let you know that it's a force effect. For the most part, it's this unstable blade style. So, and then you can hear that sound effect. To switch to quote player mode, we'll do that in the reverse.
Make a motion and send it where that kind of a request belongs.
Okay, and now we're in quote player mode, so even though I'm not pointing down, I'm gonna still just be doing quotes.
Archer, get down here.
But the blade doesn't change on quote player mode, it just switches between force and effect, so only the force effects will change the color. To go back, you do the same thing. If you want to play force effects, you point down and you switch back and forth. One other thing to note is I've set this up to be random quotes, so it's just going to grab from the folder of quotes and pick one at random. Just again, hold power for a second, let go.
I'm gonna go help them out.
And then to go back to force, we're gonna switch by pointing down. Again, you'll see that blade style change. Now we're in force player mode. Okay, going back to color change real quick. There's one font out of all of these that I've done something different on color change, and that is the Cornhorn font. If you're on any other font, doing the on-the-fly color change jumps into the color wheel, which again will affect all of the accent pixels. However, if we go to Cornhorn, we're only going to switch between purple and white because that's part of the lore. And that will again reflect in the crystal as well as the blade. So jumping to Cornhorn. With the blade ignited, we're going to start in white, hold Aux, tap power, and then it switches to this purple. Kind of hard to tell in the ambient lighting, but you're not going to jump into color wheel. You're just going to jump between the two. You'll hear a little bit of a beep, but that's about it. But that is the only preset that does anything different than what I mentioned previously. That's pretty much it. The rest of this I will let you discover with the printout or watching any of the FET263 videos on how to do things. But it will cover all of the base operations for these Starfall hilts. Thank you for watching and being patient with me on putting this all together for you and taking all of your programming ideas into consideration.